Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode in our Dominions Intervention series. In this case, we're going to be looking at middle-aged Pangea, and the player who submitted this is Waywinkle. I forget the name of the game he is in, but right here we have our pretender. It is Earth 5 for shock fire resistance, Nature 7 for regen, and Blood 4 for Blood Surge, and this is for his Centaur primarily. And so that's kind of cool. He's got, that is his Bless. His scales, he went for an Order Pangea build, which is pretty important with Pangea because it affects how you get Meneids. And so if you go Order, you really don't get many Meneids, which is okay if you have things to break through castle walls and stuff. In some ways, Meneids can kind of be a liability. But they're kind of okay once you take a lot of buffs. Anyway, he went Order 2, Sloth 1, Heat 3, Growth 3, Misfortune 3, and Magic 3. And this is a lot different than, let's say, a Turmoil Luck Pangea would be, which would have a ton of Meneids. So that's the build. I don't really have too much to comment about it. I think this is a very fine Centaur Bless, and your scales are cool. I actually like the idea of going for an Order Pangea build. If you do Order, you're doing it primarily for the recruitment points, and that's so that you can use a lot of your Satyr units, and you can max out White Centaur production. Like you can see we can get a lot of White Centaur a turn. But you can also get a ton of Satyr units in your other forts. So like if we go up to a fort up here, you can get kind of a good bit. You end up being recruitment point constrained. So, you can see we get a lot. We still have a fair amount of resources left over. I think the resources are primarily needed. As you can see, we basically tap out resources here. So this is a pretty well-balanced build, I think. I like the scales. You've clearly put some time thinking into kind of how this balances out. And I didn't know, for example, like this was kind of about the balance you would need in order to tap out not only White Centaur, but then things like Satyr production later. Because you can see here we're recruitment point constrained, but here we're resource point constrained mostly, or holy point constrained, but like we're pretty close to being resource constrained. So there's that going on. We're not going to go through the turn. We'll talk a little bit about the game state before we go on. So anyway, the build is pretty solid, but it does come at the expense of Meneids, and there are some kind of weird decisions he made. Like normally, if you go for a Turmoil build, you don't have a lot of these guys sitting around who would typically summon Meneids. Which I think is what the pandemics get. I think it's also what don't we have some pans somewhere else too? Yeah, I think it's what the pans get. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure. It doesn't say anything here, but I'm pretty sure this is Meneids. So it's weird because if you go this build, often you don't really want a ton of these guys, but you can see he has a lot. So I'm not sure. That's kind of one of the comments. I'm not really sure this is quite the way to do it. Usually you're going to get these guys when you have like very specific needs. And like he has all these blood guys that are researching, but really if you get the blood ones, there's a lot cheaper guys to research, so you should probably be out having them blood hunt. So those are kind of some weird kind of points on the build. Now he doesn't have a great way to use blood slaves so far. So we can kind of look through the blood research calendar and or research list and see what there is. So, but first let's talk about the game state. So the big thing that jumps out and smacks you in the face is that Caitlyn is really big. This isn't a huge map. There's a Phalegra down here, and then I think there's an Ashdod I think they're around here. Could be wrong. And then there's a relay in the sea. I think those are the big players left. Scaleria used to be up here, but Pangea was involved in conquering them. And then down here is Arco, which has also basically been conquered now. So Pangea's done a pretty good job. They don't really have their scales out everywhere, but that's okay because this is kind of like newly conquested land. It's turn 54. So in terms of Diplo, these guys have Pangea has a nap with Caitlyn. They are fighting Ulm currently, and I think they're at peace with Relay, even though they have warred them previously. This war with Ulm has been a bit back and forth. Pangea does not really think they can take them in a straight-up fight, and because of that, they can't really finish anything. All they can do is harass and raid, which is okay. My concern is that if they're doing this, there's a clock ticking, and if Pangea eats, like, you're securing 2 of Pangea's major borders, right? You and Ulmar. Like, if y'all aren't fighting him, he's got a safe north and a safe south, and that means he can basically focus on devouring these giant nations. So, like, Relay is trying to deal with them, but you can see they're not being terribly successful here on the coast. So, I think that's probably the biggest problem is y'all are probably giving Caitlyn the game. And Caitlyn is one of those nations that we need 10 to ascend, and there's 2 that are taken. One of them is on your coast, or here's one of them. Well, let's see which ones you have. Let's actually do some accounting. You have 1, 2. I think that's it. Let's see if you've claimed them. You've only claimed 1 of them. So potentially, yeah, okay, this is probably a little far away for them to just jump to, but they could, like, get there in 2 turns attacking you. I don't know where the other unclaimed one is, but with the size of Caitlyn, there's a good chance that they're going to have that one. The danger with Caitlyn is they can throne rush very, 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 very quickly, and it can be very difficult to prevent. And Caitlyn kind of is a throne rushing nation. If you don't... Okay, like, there's this one here, too. What is this? Okay, so this is one of them. But, like, yeah, this is basically a free throne for Caitlyn. Like, they have this one, they have this one, they have this one. So they already have 3 in their possession. They've only claimed 2. So one of these they've claimed. Yeah, and this is one of the unclaimed... Or wait, no, this is one of the unclaimed, and this is one of the unclaimed. So... This is basically theirs. If they conquer the giants, they're going to have this one. And then they just need 1 more. And you have to understand at this point, like, if they get this, right, or even if they just conquer this throne, they're going to get... This is basically theirs. This is a pocket throne for Caitlyn. Like, if they declare war on you, they can just take all their mages, where they're not going to really care about assassins anymore, because they're going to have so many. They can just go and, like, 2-turn jump on your throne and win. So... you being an ally for Caitlyn is helping you more than it's helping them. You have pretty good countermeasures to Caitlyn raiding. Like, you can just have a dryad in each province once you end your nap with them. And they raid, and okay, you steal their shit, and then you move on to the next one. So, I think, like, you in Ulm, like, we're going to go through how you would win against Ulm. And it's going to be tricky, I think. But I think it's possible. But you don't really have the tools right now. Like, it's going to be really hard. And you've profited from it because you've stolen some of his priest-smiths, which have, you know, like, this is awesome to steal this through seduction. Like, awesome. So, I mean, it's worth going to war just to steal a couple of these guys. And you've raided some territory. But honestly, you guys probably need to, like, figure out what it would take. And... I think the mutual, like, the way I would approach this is, like, obviously you guys have been fighting for, like, a short while, and it hasn't really been beneficial for both of you. You've both lost a lot, but not really gained a ton. And you, like, the problem is if you kill him, then you're going to potentially lose an ally against Caitlyn, because ideally y'all both declare war on Caitlyn at the same time. And you say, like, hey, you can attack and take all this Caitlyn land down here, right? And you're going to attack on this border, and he's going to get this. You're going to get all this. And hopefully the idea of, like, this huge Caitlyn gangbang can entice him into maybe taking some... Because, like, neither of you are going to get what you want. Because, like, he's going to want land from you that you don't want to give up, and you're going to want to not give up land, right? So... and like you've taken a fair amount, right? And so you're not going to want to like move backwards, especially if you feel you can defend it. But the fact that y'all are trading back and forth, you're kind of in like this lose-lose. Because at some point, like it's pretty clear Caitlyn is winning this just from looking at it. And I don't have much more intel than you do. Like you can talk with these players, which I would do, and figure out how bad it is. But let me just tell you, it looks pretty bad. It looks really bad. And it obviously might not be, but I'm just going to tell you, you have this guy, like a Caitlyn, and they can jump around. It's probably bad. But, you know, Phalegra and Ashdod are nations that can, like, super combat in their way out of Caitlyn, and Caitlyn does have trouble dealing with that kind of shit. But anyway, so figuring this out is, like, really important. If these guys are in control and they're pushing Caitlyn back, like, they're actively winning the war, then I would say, okay, you can potentially grind it out with Ulm. Because if you win versus Ulm, it's going to be really grindy. If these guys are not, like, decidedly winning, then both of them, because if one of them decidedly kind of wins and they're, like, taking in a gradual province or they're killing raiders, but one of them's decidedly losing, then Caitlyn's going to get all their shit really fast. And then this guy's going to decidedly lose, right? Because he's now fighting an even bigger nation without any, like, ally helping him. So anyway, I don't know how bad it is, but that's really the first important piece of information to figure out. So I think, like, from a game state perspective, Caitlyn throne rushing at this point in the game is, like, the number one issue. So you guys need to figure out, like, what I would propose to Ulm is, like, look, man, okay, you get this, you get this, you get this, you get this, which is a really nice site. It's got a fort. Like, you probably have to give him one fort, right? So you can he can pick which fort he can't get Arco, or maybe you give him Arco, right? And then he has this full border to expand into Caitlyn. Right? And you take this. Like, you're okay. It's actually better for you to go and take a bunch of Caitlyn shit. Right? And you actually are a decent matchup against Caitlyn. And we'll talk about exactly kind of what that might mean. But, yeah, you're pretty decent. Okay. So that would be my first advice, is, like, this is a grindy war, you should get out of it, but getting out of it's going to be making a concession you don't want to make. Like, you know, drive a hard bargain, don't try to give away too much, but it's important first to get his recognition that y'all are both going to fight each other to the death while Caitlyn wins. Once he agrees on that, then, there's different ways to approach it, but, I think I would say, like, look, like, I'm okay giving you this and this, which probably he's going to get anyway. And then say, I'll give you one fort, and you get to pick which fort I give you, right? So he gets these two provinces, right? And you'll stop raiding him, you'll stop assassinating him, which I'm sure he's hating, and you're going to give him, these two provinces and one fort, and he gets to pick. And of course he's going to take Arco, which it's like, okay, you really want Arco? It's really nice, but honestly, what it will do is it's going to give you a very safe border where he's going to completely buffer you from Caitlyn on this side. You just have to worry about light raiding because he can jump over. So it's not a completely safe border, but it's going to help to make it more safe. And I think, like, the cost of taking this and having a grindy war versus potentially everybody ganging up on Caitlyn, taking a throne victory out of his hands and taking a bunch of things on this border, potentially even going in for his cap, wherever that is. Okay, here's his cap. So probably not his cap, but you can theoretically, like, conquer a lot of this stuff. I think that would be more profitable to you. But a condition of y'all going to war should be that y'all are both going to declare war on Caitlyn at the same time, and y'all are both going to attack him at the same time. And maybe you can do it without... I don't think you're going to be... Look, man, this army is going to want a fort. You're going to have to give it a fort. Now, he may not be able to take it, and so I think we'll talk about that next. So how would you war... this guy? Going against Ulm in a straight up, like, fist fight is going to be a problem. He's got really good troops. He's not making your really good troops, which are the flail heavy infantry. He's got these guys with shields, which are kind of meh. I mean, they're okay. So, how would you war this guy? The problem is they have really heavy armor. The Sacreds are going to kind of murder your Centaurs, like to the point where you almost don't even want to send them in. In terms of research, you've got Conjuration 5, Alt 7. You're working on Enchantment 6, which actually is a little short of where you're going to need to go, which is Enchantment 7. So you've done a pretty good job with research. Your construction's kind of low. Unfortunately, there's not much you have where you're going to win a straight up fight. I've seen, you've sent me one of your older turns too. And so you've been doing a pretty good job not taking a straight up fight unless you have a distinct advantage. So, you're not going to have an advantage here. You're going to have a really hard time stopping this army. You don't have enough assassins here. You hardly have any. And I don't know how many you can pull. You can move all these guys down here. But if he's smart, he's going to have, and I don't know if he is, he's going to have 30 commanders in this army at least, right? Like scouts, indie commanders, a bunch of shit. His mages will have earth gems so that he can, summon earth elementals, and it's going to be tricky. So you can try to not have a fair fight, but it's going to be really hard if he's really committed. And for him, there's a huge value. You could say, look, you can have both these lands in this fort, but I keep Arco. Or you could say, okay, you get this fort and this land, but I keep these two. And maybe that's a better deal for you to keep. Because this does have the Labyrinth, which is freaking awesome. So, you can figure out, exactly kind of what the bargaining point is. But you're going to have a real hard time fighting him in a fully committed fight. It's kind of bottom line fact. The ways to go after Ulm are normally going after the fact that they have low magic resistance and they have really high fatigue. So you could try to do one of those, but the thing is, you're playing Pangea, you don't really have great options for fatigue plays, and you don't really have great options to go after mass MR. Not that I know of anyway, right? And I'm not exactly... there's a ton of stuff that I might not be thinking of, but I don't see anything obvious. Okay, so we've said that this is not an ideal fight. He's probably going to get something anyway. That's kind of why I'm thinking you should get out of this war. And it's not helping the game state much. You being in a grindy war is not good. So if you need to fight them, let's talk about what a good recipe would be for fighting them. One thing is at Alt 7, not only do you unlock mass protection, which is the shit, but arguably more importantly, you unlock Creeping Doom, which is freaking awesome. You get 70 bugs. So many bugs, right? If you're Nature 4, and all your guys, they can do, let's look at this. So you've already got House scripted, that's good. So you do want Howl up every fight. Strength of Gaia, that means you are now Nature 5. Right? Now you can do Creeping Doom. Okay, when you're casting it at 5, you're gonna be taking 30% of the fatigue. It's gonna be 33 fatigue. Right, so you can cast it basically 3 times. If you do Earth Power, so you don't really actually want to do Earth Power because these first couple things are really important. And you may even skip it because this first one's so important. But even this, you're getting a 50% reduction. You can put an extra gem or 2 in it, so you can easily get 3 of them out, right? Or even if you only get 2, this guy's making 140 units, right? Each one of these guys can do it. So let's just say we do Creeping Doom times 2, and that's what we're going to do. And we don't actually need many gems. This guy only needs 2 gems for this, right? So we put 2 gems on all of these guys. And they all are going to do Creeping Doom. Okay. That's what these guys are going to do. You've got a shit ton of nature gems too. Okay, so we've got all these Creeping Dooms coming down. And you're like, sweet. This guy, all your nature 2s, they can also do Creeping Doom, but it's going to take them 2 per cast. And it's going to fatigue them out. But there's not really anything that a Nature 1 guy or a Nature 2 guy can do that's going to be better than casting Creeping Doom. Okay. So if we look at this, we're making 1, 2. If they're nature 3, they're going to need a couple more gems. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We're going to get 10 casts, so it's 10 times 70, so it's going to be 700 units put on the field, which is a lot, but he's got a lot too. So you may actually need a few more. But the important thing is that we are going to be doing, on top of this, mass protection. Right, so you'll have somebody cast it. Now the casting time is 150 and this is 125. So if one of them, you get rid of this so that they do mass protection, this should cover all the castings of the bugs. And this is important. You want the bugs with mass protection. So something like this, and this is going to give your troops mass protection on turn 2. Or not on turn 2, but basically one tick later than it could have been. If you put it on the first slot, right? But it's now going to cover all your bugs. Okay? Now, that's nice. What else can we do? Well, we've got air mages, because you have this wonderful throne of air, right? So you've been getting a lot of these, which is really good. You're using them for researching. But we have bigger and better designs for these guys. What we're going to need is there's 2 spells we're going to need to potentially win against Pan. One is going to be Fog Warriors, which is going to make you largely immune to most of his troops, which are the Black Plate Infantry. You're still going to kind of get wrecked by the Guardians, but the crossbows aren't going to do too much. You've got fire resistance and you're going to have really good armor. You'll have fire resistance 5 after the mass protection buff on your sacred troops anyway. Yeah, so anyway, that'll be good. Fog Warriors, super duper good. The other thing is they're going to have really hard protection. So how are we actually going to damage? Well, the bugs are going to do armor negating damage, which is nice. What you're also going to need is probably mass flight. And why do I say that? First of all, I think, okay, you can use these Centaur. They're going to kind of struggle. I think because these guys are such high armor, and I could be wrong, and because they're packed so densely in a square, you need just an enormous amount of Minotaurs. And I'm not sure which one is better here. Berserker plus 4. What is, and I think mass regen is 8, which we're not going to have. But relief will be kind of nice. Serpent Blessing at 7. You can also combo this with Val Vapors, which is really easy for you to cast. Yeah, so I think Enchantment 7 is the way to go here, if you're fighting Ulm. Like, if you're intent to kind of grind Ulm down. Enchantment 7 is going to give you relief, which is kind of nice. It's going to give you Serpent's Blessing, which will allow you to really use Foul Vapors. You also have pretty high HP units, higher than Ulm, so the poison damage is going to hurt them proportionally, significantly more than it's going to hurt you. It's also going to hurt your bugs, because they'll basically die on the first tick of poison they get, but if you get Serpent's Blessing down first, then a lot of them are still going to die, basically, because they're still going to get... This isn't going to be enough to block all of the poison damage. So it's worth thinking about how you time it. It's possible that you don't do Foul Vapors till like turn 4 or 5. And what that will do is allow your bugs to jump on them if you're comboing it with Mass Flight. So, like, how are we going to do Mass Flight? Mass Flight and... So Mass Flight's easy, actually. Mass Flight, you can just put this Crystal Shield on them, which is an item you can forge now. I don't know if you got this from an event or you forged it. But this is going to get you up to Air 3. And that's enough to cast Mass Flight. You only need to be level 3 to cast this. So, okay, check. You can do Mass Flight. But if you also want to do Fog Warriors, which I think you definitely want to do, and you already have it researched, but you don't have the other one researched, Mass Flight, you're going to need these guys in a communion. So to do that, what you're going to want to do is you can use a Crystal Shield. You're going to need to make 3 more items. You're going to need to make a Crystal Matrix, right? And you're going to also need to make 2 of these, 2 slave matrices. And then this group's going to have to go around with your doom stack. And if you fog warriors these centaurs and you do mass flight, you're going to be in a good way. Especially if you want to time it so that you do fog warriors first, because you don't really care about fog warriors on your bugs because they only have 1 HP. They'll die anyway. Turn 2, when you do mass flight, that is going to hit all your bugs. So normally only some of the bugs are flying, but this way all of them will become flying and they'll all jump on everybody. And at the same time, presumably, let's say you take your white centaur, they're going to jump in and start murdering things. They've got mass protection on them, so they've got now really good protection. In addition, they've got mass flight, so they're jumping in there. I think centaur would be really, really good because they're going to trample, and that's going to be doing armor-piercing damage to a kind of a whole square. And the problem you would normally have is that they'll get surrounded and killed. But I think it's kind of going to be a critical mass thing. But if you have enough of these guys, and they have fog warriors and mass protection on them, which you can already do now once you forge a couple items, these guys are going to be able to kill just ungodly numbers of Ulmish troops before they die. So I think that is a strategy for fighting these guys. Can you do it without mass flight? Because we don't have it researched yet. Maybe. It's going to be significantly harder because you're going to have a big numbers advantage from the bugs, but the bugs are going to block you from making good melee contact. So it may not actually work out that much in your advantage. So I don't know if the timing is here with this war with Ulm either, right? And like mass protection in and of itself in combination with fog warriors, I don't think will be enough. Yeah, I really don't. What you could do, another option, because you have these guys, you put a Thistle Mace on this one and she can cast Foul Vapors. Doing a PD dump, where you spam out, like potentially you could do this. You could take all these guys, you've got them scripted to do this. You come in, you do like 2 castings where they don't fatigue. You put enough gems on them so they don't fatigue out. You do 2 castings of Creeping Doom. And then they retreat, and then this lady who you give, or whoever your water nature one is, you give a Thistle Mace. She casts Foul Vapors, and then Moss Body, and then sits in the back where hopefully nobody hits her. And then in conjunction with Mass Protection, hopefully on some of the bugs, and you doing the PD dump, it'll last long enough to kill everybody. Right, and the fact they have one of the Kings of Elemental Earth doesn't matter because the whole army will run. Like, that is not a bad move to make. But the thing is, if you're going to attack Caitlyn, which I think at some point you guys are going to have to, that's why this diplomacy really matters, then you're only weakening a potential ally. But it could be you do that, and then you say, hey, let's just call peace. I'll give you some land you want, but I'm going to keep Arco and keep this. So that is an option. If you want to kill that army, the best way to do this is Foul Vapors right now. Later, you can do it if you do Fog Warriors. If you want to do Fog Warriors in a hurry, you're going to need to Cloud Trap piece some of these guys down here. And you're going to need to get them... And I don't remember if you had multiple of the Earth Astral Cross Path where you could get more slave matrices sooner. Don't really see that at this moment. So it looks like you've only got one guy who can do it. So hopefully he's been doing something like this every turn, because he's obviously extremely valuable for you. And, it might even be worth it to keep fighting him to get a couple more, but I don't know. I think it's risky. So if you need to fight a Doom stack, that would be my advice. First priority, Foul Vapor Trap with Creeping Doom and Mass Protection on top of the PD dump. That could potentially kill his whole army. Next option is getting Mass Flight and Fog Warriors up, ideally in combination with a bunch of Tramplers, and doing Creeping Doom spam with Mass Protection. If you do that, you have a decent shot at killing these guys. And while you're at it, because you have air, and you do have an enchantment, you can do Arrow Fend once you get this, and this will help some with things like crossbows. So, anyway, I think that's a way to fight them. And I think with that, we will move on to the next topic, which is your assassins. So we can see you using some of them here. Here's your first battle. Okay, now you're up against the guy with a water elemental, so that's going to be a little tricky here. And you yourself are a Nature 1 caster, so you can only cast Swarm twice. Why are you so fatigued out? Okay, I'm not actually sure why she couldn't get it off twice. Let's watch that again. Unless they changed the fatigue formula, because I thought it was 100. Oh, I bet I know what it is. I bet... So they're in Ulm, and they've got drain scales. So she's taking extra fatigue damage. She would have won if they weren't in drain scales, so that's what happened here. So that's when you're in drain, you're going to take like a percentage more fatigue, and for high fatigue spells, that can mean you get basically knocked out. And then here we've got basically the same deal. Okay, the bugs get back here, and I think this guy has low HP from before, so yeah, they kill him. So you kill him the second time, and you get this. So it's not all in all a bad deal. These Nature 2 ones are going to be a lot better. So a few things. One is these Nature 2 ones, rather than doing Swarm twice, you need to go ahead and upgrade your script. It's going to be way better to do Creeping Doom once. Just a thought. You've got another one here. So all your Nature 2s, you need to upgrade their script. And they're going to be, by far and away, your better assassins. The other thing you can do is you have Earth guys, right? And you have one hammer, right? You probably want a few more hammers. So go ahead and make you some hammers. Because why do you need hammers? Well, you need hammers because you need assassin items. Like making... This is going to go a long way to making Swarm better. These Vine Men will sit there and attack whatever you're attacking. They'll also make it more difficult for something to kind of rush you. And like if you're fighting in Drain, this would have been enough for that water elemental to chew on, probably until you got your fatigue down where you could cast Swarm again. So that's a good thing to make. And if you're going to be spamming out Cornucopia, it's not quite as great of a deal, but it's still okay. So anyway, that's something that's pretty good on Assassins. You could do Boots of the Messenger too if you're having fatigue issues fighting in Drain. You really need to be able to do that second casting quickly. And I think that's mostly... I mean, the other thing you can do is you can make things like being able to switch and just shoot a Thunderbow is going to do a lot to kill a lot of things that you're going to fight when you're assassinating. So, like putting on Boots of the Messenger are going to give you additional movement. It's going to help you with your fatigue. You cast it once, probably like one of the nastiest assassins you could do is you take this person, you give them a cornucopia, you give them a thing of acorns, or if you don't give them the cornucopia, just give them some nature gems. You give them an acorn, and then you give her a thunderbow, and your script is just Creeping Doom and then fire, right? And that's going to be scary as hell. Yeah. You could also do aim. Problem is, aim will probably fatigue you out, and you really, really, really... Or Eagle Eyes. I guess you could do it. This could add... If you do this, you probably also want to put Boots of the Messenger on, which is not bad on Assassins. It gives you a little bit more mobility in where you deploy them. but it's going to use those nature gems. But a lot of these assassin items are way more economical if you have hammers. So go ahead and make some hammers, and then make some assassin items. You're going to get a lot more leverage, and you won't lose the occasional assassin like this. And yeah, I think that's it. And I would focus the good items on the assassins that are less likely to die, like these Nature 2 ones. So I think that is about it for the assassin tricks. I think we've covered most of it. Okay. So we've talked about how to fight this army with 2 ways. We've talked about upgrading the assassins with items and making hammers. The thing we need to talk about next is, I think, one of the biggest weaknesses in this particular situation. Like, you're in a pretty good position. You've got, a good build. You're a decent size. You've conquered some people. There's some really good stuff going on. The real problem is your research. Like, this is pretty late in the game. This is turn 54. So, mid-game is largely defined by, do you have access, like, your speed in getting access to certain key spells that are going to be really good for your nation, right? So you're in the mid-game. You've got Alt 7, which is like the most important thing for Pangea. You have construction, so you've got some basic things you could do, but you're not really doing for assassins. And then you're running up enchantment, which is also really good for Pangea. So you're kind of climbing mid-game, but you're climbing it slowly. Like in an advanced game, depending who's in there, but like, I think I went and checked. When I was playing Middle-Aged Ulm, I was done with all research in the game by turn, I think, 70. Right? So that's like 14 turns from now. Now, that's not the position this Ulm is in, I can just tell you. But like, they're pretty far. Like they're probably farther ahead than you. And like when I was playing Ulm, I had like 9. Like by this point in the game, by turn 54, I would have had 9s, like 2 or 3 9s here, right? And it's a different nation, but you really, especially if you go magic, and like this is really low in terms of research. And I want to talk about why it's low. So it's low because let's just see. Like we don't have enough money to do all the things we need to do. Like our reset recruitment. Let's just reset recruitment. Let's see what we can recruit. Okay, and that makes sense. That's the amount we have in our treasury is about the income difference, right? So let's see if we can get dryads everywhere. Okay, we don't have a temple here, so we'll keep getting these guys. Pan. Okay, we can kind of get it, and we have gold left over. So your infrastructure ratio is not bad. And we have gold left over for, a small handful of troops. I think the main problem, like why we don't have good research, or you don't have good research, is you have a lot of pans that I don't see much evidence of you really using them terribly properly. Like in terms of upkeep, these guys are 244 a year. If we compare them to the Dryad, they are 88 a year. What did I say for the Pan? 244. So 80 is basically 3 times as much upkeep for this guy. And how much research are you getting? 17 versus 9, but you have magic scales. So for you, magic scales means these guys are going to be producing 12 versus these guys are going to be producing 20. So if you had 3 of these guys at 12, you would be getting 36, right? And for the same upkeep, you're getting 20. So you get almost twice the research by doing dryads. And the thing is, having your forts stacked up with dryads is terrifying. And even things you want to do, like, I mean, you definitely want pants. They're a good unit. But like here, if we're using them to do Creeping Doom, Like, you can do a lot of that in a pinch with dryads. Because if you think about it, like a dryad, 1 in 3 of them are going to be nature 2. The nature 2 ones can run through, in most cases, a double Creeping Doom script for battles, which is like how I want to use a lot of these guys. So, and then the other ones could do Swarm. So you get way more casting potential quickly in the battle by doing dryads, and then also it's just much. You're actually. It feels like you're scary because you've got some assassins out, but you don't have any depth in your roster. Like, if people attack you on your forts, like, there's no dryad sitting around waiting for a big attack. So, you did the build right, but you've gotten a lot of these really, really high upkeep units, which are actually significantly worse in terms of researching. And right now you've got them all sitting around researching, which is not what you want to use these guys for. Like, these are not great researchers. You've gotten some Miniads from them, but the Miniads you get from these guys are really bad. So if you go for the order build, which I dig, it's cool, you don't want to overproduce these. You want to produce these and like use them for what they need to be used for, which is going to be like, in the early game, it's going to be leading armies around doing wooden warriors on them, like spamming it out. In the mid game, it's going to be, dropping mass protection on them, right? So you can actually do mass protection with an N2 Dryad and a cornucopia. So you don't even really need these guys, but it's nice being able to drop it with some authority. In the late game, these guys are awesome. You can use them to charm and stuff like that. But I think you're too deep in this for an order build, and that's really cost you a huge amount of your upkeep. And then, like, these guys, they need to be blood hunting. You've got a ton down here. Like, these guys should not be researching. You need to, like, figure out what you're going to do with them. So, if you're going to recruit them and just have them sit around and research, it's not good. It's expensive. Okay. The other thing you can do to kind of control upkeep, and especially if you're going in order build, is you can have these guys cast Transformation. And honestly, I would probably do that, like, with almost all of these. You can get like improved magic paths from doing it. You can also have like really bad results, which is kind of funny. But it should, at least it used to, I haven't done it recently, but it should get rid of all your upkeep. I would get rid of your items in case like somehow that doesn't work. But you have a ton of nature income, and this is going to go a long way to getting rid of some of your upkeep problems. It's just doing mass transformation. You're not going to get the Miniads, but I think this is a cool thing. Like, if you go for the order build where you don't really care about Miniads, then you're not really losing anything. Like, you're losing the fact, like, these are decent chassis just because they're stealthy, and they have poison resistance, and recuperation, which is all nice. They're kind of old. You would have to look at some of the chassis. It's possible some of the transformation chassis will give you old age. I'm not really totally sure on the math there. But... well, we might do it real quick. I'm just going to kind of load up a test game real quick, and I'll put the debug mod on, and we'll just go see what happens. So, Pangea, I'll just call it test, and then we'll do middle-age Pangea. Okay. And then we'll get somebody like this. Okay. And what are we going to do? Well, we need to be able to... so I need to get this little... this is kind of how, by the way, you start up a debug game. We're going to alchemize into this. We're going to summon a debug sensei. And then we're going to put the pearls over here. And then y'all are both going to cast gems. Well, I didn't do the right one. Monthly cast gems. Okay. And then here we're going to recruit pans. We'll do, I have it on mass, and then I'm going to go ahead and get one more actually. And then you're going to monthly do gems again, and you are going to monthly do gold. And then we're just going to hammer this out for a few turns. I forgot to do a human for the other player, but whatever. Let me make sure we've got... Okay, we do have transformation researched. We have a ton of gold. I'm going to just make my PD here go crazy so they don't attack and kill me. I'll just see if there's any issue. Okay. And then... This is not going to be a representative sample, but this is about how many you have, so this is kind of what you might expect. So, okay, we cast Transformation. Transformation went seriously wrong. I became a freak. Okay, so let's take a look at it. Okay, so we're a freak. That's not really a huge downgrade. Here we are a regenerating Hydra Hatchling of some kind of cool shit. Oh, okay, so it's not going to mess us up for age. I haven't really casted a ton. I don't really play nature-heavy nations too much. Here we're a flying bird. Super awesome. We're another flying bird. Super duper cool. So you basically get an upgrade, and like these guys cost no upkeep. I mean, some of these guys aren't upgrades, but, you know. Most of the time for what you're going to do, you don't really care about the fact that this is like a worse chassis. Now, if we look at the movement points, did we get an upgrade? 18? So this is like a strong upgrade, upgrade, downgrade, strong upgrade, upgrade, and then downgrade. So in general, you're going to get upgrades to movement points, but some of them will be downgrades. So, okay. We'll go back to the game. But anyway, I think that's a really good way for you to spend your nature gems, like pronto. I would do that with everybody. That would help fix a lot of your upkeep problems. And let's pull your game back up here. Okay, so... yeah, kind of a weird part of your build. If you do it, you definitely want to do this in combination with transformation. Because you have basic... So that's one of the reasons your research is kind of meh. You haven't been making dryads, right? And even if we do the transformation, like, these guys are still really expensive. Like, this guy is 305 versus this guy, which is 220. So... Actually, I guess in terms of initial cost, it's probably comparable for the amount of research you're getting. So yeah, maybe doing order and then making sure you're doing transformation. You're going to be good. So that is that part. The other reason that you've been struggling is Pangea doesn't have great access to any of the important paths. Like, Pangea as a nation, they basically get nature a lot, they get some earth, tiny bit of water, and then a tiny bit of blood. So, you know, like, what are the things that we can do to get research? Well, there's air, which we don't have, but you've lucked into it, so you've started making these, which is great, but it's like pretty late in the game. There is fire, which you don't really have, but you've just got access to here. But this requires you to go up construction 5 or 6, which is not a bad idea. There is death, which you don't really have access to, and there's blood, and blood you do have. So like these guys, they can make imp familiars, which is going to give you +3, which is not nothing. But like if you compare it, they could be researching. So this will pay itself off basically after. And these guys are kind of expensive, so it'll take a while. It'll take like 6 turns for it to pay itself off. But that's not too long. So the taint you get from these imps is really small. And it's actually not a horrible assassin item, because you get an imp familiar in battle. So like if you go for a drow research economy and you have these guys on your research drows and somebody attacks you, okay, you're now going to be doing, you know, like swarm spam and assassinations. But by the way, you also have a Shadow Imp, which is just for free, because you were going to use this anyway for researching. So, pretty cool. I think you could probably get away with making a fair number of those. Though I would probably do transformation on these guys first. In the tests, I don't think... We might have gotten an additional magic path. I didn't test, but you definitely can when you do transformation. So, yeah, I would do that. Probably do these blood boosters, but now that you have fire access, it's very, very tempting to go up to construction 6, but I'd probably do it after enchantment if you've got to fight these guys. So that is kind of thoughts on the research pickle. Research pickle is basically because we're heavily upkeep constrained by pans and pandemonics, and you want to get rid of that in the short run by transformation or just by making dryads, which I think, like, with this build you went is like the unit you should have been making, unless you were specifically going to do these and transformations. Okay, so we've talked about that. Now, if you're able to get out of this war with Ulm, which honestly I think you should, like, whether you can kill this army, because maybe that's what it's going to take to really convince him. You kill the army with the Foul Vapor Trap, ideally. And, like, if he marches this army just to take Arco, like, it's the perfect time to Foul Vapor Trap him, right? You just, like, take this guy, you move her here, this turn you make a Thistle Mace, right? Then the next turn they pop out, you spam a few Creeping Dooms, right? Do we have any Astral Mages here? Not many. You just have one. Okay, well, and you don't have the right research. You have to get 6. I was going to say you put Rings of Returning on, but yeah, you can just, you spam out Creeping Doom and, like, 4 casts of Creeping Doom, and then these guys retreating. And I think it's extra safe retreating in forts. Like, I don't think you have to worry about them, like, not retreating successfully. I think it's, like, very, very safe if you're retreating into a fort. Not inside the fort, but, like, if the battle's outside the fort, I think you pretty much always go back inside the fort. So, perfect place to do a Foul Vapors trap. And then when they run off the battlefield, they're probably not going to get killed by the Foul Vapors. And then you just... I mean, she's basically going to be sacrificial. Ideally, you give her poison gear and, like, robe of arrow fending, so that the archer fire doesn't get her, and then, like, a Ring of Returning and a Coral Blade, and that way she would, like, not die. Because you don't want to lose the Thistle Mace, but you're probably going to give up a Thistle Mace. Like, she's probably going to die, but you're going to kill this whole army. Like, most of it. So, that's... If he doesn't want to do it, then... Like, I would probably just say, hey, how about this? You get these... Or I would say, look, you can take Arco, but I'm going to take these 2. So you pick. Either you get these 2, or you get Arco. And then killing his whole army with Foul Vapors, in addition to all the assassinations you've been doing, should convince him. But you can just do it in a friendly way, however you manage. Okay, but this brings us to the next... At some point, you're probably going to have to fight Caitlyn. Now, when you fight Caitlyn, they're going to be having magic weapons, which is kind of going to suck. I mean, not only are they going to have magic, they're going to have Storm Up, they're going to have Fog Warriors, and they're going to have Thunderstrike spam. Now, the good news is, while Ulm's Guardians are going to wreck your Sacreds are going to do pretty damn good. Now, you don't have magic weapons, and I don't think you have any units that can get magic weapons. You are not a magic weapon kind of playa, you know? Which, you know, is fine, but bugs don't really care about magic weapons. So if you do Fog Warriors yourself, not Fog Warriors, Fog Warriors will be, yeah, Fog Warriors on your, well, no, they're going to have magic weapons. That's not going to help. But I think just honestly, Mass Protection and Regenerating Centaurs can probably grind their way through a lot of these guys, especially with Shock Resistance. So you're not a bad matchup. The questions you'll have to deal with are what happens when Caitlyn attacks you. And the problem that Caitlyn has is that they're kind of one-dimensional. They do fog warriors, they have magic lances, and they do lightning spam, right? So you have air magic, which is really good. So let's say you make one of these, and let's say you make one of these, and then you give him any old headgear, like I mean, it doesn't matter. You put some hat on one of these guys, right? And then you script him something like this. You're going to say, okay, turn 1, he's got copper plate and a storm spool, and you've got a shock resistance bless. Turn 1, you do iron skin. Turn 2, you do summon earth power. Turn 3, you do temper flesh. You are now immune to almost everything that Caitlyn is going to be able to throw at you, right? So in preparation for a war with Caitlyn, I would make a few kits, and I would just have one of these guys patrolling like most of your forts. And then I wouldn't try to necessarily do that at every province because it's a little dangerous. And you want to, ideally, you put this guy right in the middle of where your formation is going to be so he can finish his script. Because he doesn't need to finish it, but he needs to get kind of the farther way down it. So you put him here. You make him patrol. You make sure there's no units patrolling, because if there's units patrolling, the units can rout, and then he'll be in trouble. But as long as it's just PD, he'll be fine, right? And you get a nice little bit of PD here, and this guy's patrolling, and he's got like a frost brand, nice. He's got these boots on. He's got. Don't do the shield because eventually the shield will break, and we don't really need a shield here. I mean, you could do double frost brand, so you chew your way through nice and quick. You're going to need the copper chest plate, and you're going to need the storm spool. Or maybe just the copper chest plate, but you're going to have to be able to eat thunder strikes, which is kind of the problem. But you definitely want to be fatigue neutral. With earth power, you're probably okay. You could also do a flesh eater, which might be good, because that will take... That's probably what I do. I'd probably do a frost brand and flesh eater. The problem with that is you don't always want to do a flesh eater. Actually, you might not need it. The thing is with the flesh eater, if you get if they get you before you finish your script, you'll never finish your script. So I'm a little on the fence here. You can't bless yourself. So it's even cheaper. Maybe you just throw these guys on him. And yeah, with this you get regen built in. Yeah, I'd probably do that. And you get your shock resistance. You get a little bit of protection. But then when you do iron skin, your protection's going to jump up to like 25, which is, for most purposes, it's enough for Caitlyn, especially with temper flesh. If you're going to put a shield on here, you could do like charcoal shield or something like that, which again this guy can forge, but you're going to be kind of scarce for his turns. You can do other shields. I wouldn't. The divine shield will kind of pop eventually in a long fight because you're going to basically just be sitting here grinding it out while they attack you. But I would have that prepared in each of these forts, and then I would have Dryad assassins in most of your other provinces. So ideally, you get out of the war with Ulm. You start preparing for Caitlyn raiding, where you'll be ready with like a Dryad assassin or two in all of these other provinces, and you have somebody specifically kitted to deal with Caitlyn and all of these, and then you also get like an army up here. So that, it will take you a while to get there. Maybe like, 8 turns before you're ready, 10 turns. So, but anyway, I think that's kind of what I would do. Transformation, prepare for the war with Caitlyn. You're actually a pretty good matchup. Your White Centaur and your big army with just Divine Blessing should murder them. You have regeneration too, so you can put like a little shroud on this guy, and then you can have him do mass protection, which Caitlyn is not going to have a way to kind of hurt through that. Mass protection, you can do, once you finish enchantment, you can do Serpent's Blessing and Foul Vapors. Caitlyn's going to get kind of wrecked by it, because Foul Vapors is not Serpent's Blessing isn't enough to protect you, but with regeneration on a Centaur stack, you're going to be fine, right? I mean, you're going to be totally fine. So, like, Divine Blessing on top of regenerating. So your Centaurs are regenerating. You've got Serpent's Blessing and Foul Vapors up. you'll just be able to plow and take all of his important forts. So I would go ahead and do that. I think it's going to be like easier to get Caitlyn land if you're prepared to deal with his raiding. Okay. Final thing to talk about is what are we going to do with blood slaves? Because I was saying you need a blood hunt. So one of the things we can do is familiars to put them on our research mages, which should be dryads that are in each of your forts. So I'd get way more dryads if I haven't emphasized that. I would transform these guys and get more dryads, right? Then you're going to put familiars on them, which is going to help them with their researching and their assassination duties. Then what else are you going to do with blood? Because you have kind of a lot of blood slaves. Okay. What can we do here? And I'm not totally sure. We're already growth 3, right? Yeah, okay, so blood fecundity isn't going to be terribly good. Dark Vine's not terribly good, but these aren't horrible. Rain of Toads is pretty sick. And all you're going to need is 1 booster. So doing this can be pretty solid. Basically, you can use it to lock down fort production. There's also one more thing we need to talk about. So it's something that happened here. You've been doing a good job scouting. You had a little scout on top of here, and you can't assassinate on his fort because he's got a ton of people patrolling, so that you can't send assassins in. Okay, makes sense. The problem is he's having to risk a lot to do this, right? And you need things that can kill this. One of the other things, if you end up going construction after enchantment, which I think you should, because you have fire magic, you can get lanterns now. But if you go up construction, you basically are going to get access to golem construction. And that will be an easy way to just send somebody on top of this, and you can kit them with the right gear to kill all this. But you can also do this, I think, you'd have to test it, but I'm pretty sure you could do it in a pinch with a pan. You probably want to throw a shroud on them. That's probably enough. You're going to give them the Shield of Valor, which is going to give them air shield, and it's also a pretty solid shield. You can give them a brand here. You give them some boots to help a little. You may or may not need boots to help with the reinvigoration. And then for these slots, what would you do? That's a little tricky. I'm not totally sure. Oh, I do know. So you're basically dealing with physical damage. With physical damage, if that's the only real threat, and unfortunately that's kind of Ulm's main threat, you're just going to make bracers, right? And then you kit this guy up. He will just be able to jump in here, especially with Boots of the Messenger or like Boots of Quickness. He'll be able to jump in there and just kill this. Like, his script would be, after you put the gear I just set on him, your script would be something like this. Summon Earth Power. Then the first thing you're going to want to do is Iron Skin. The next thing you're going to want to do is Legions of Steel. The next thing you're going to want to do is Personal Regeneration. Now, because you have access to Personal Regeneration, you don't really need to Shroud this guy. But you're going to be doing Iron Skin. It's going to take care of another weakness. It's cheap, so it's okay. And then Temper Flesh, right? If you want to, instead of Temper Flesh, if you're a little more worried about other kinds of damage, you can drop Elemental Fortitude, wherever that is. And then attack. And with the Shield of Valor is going to be pretty important because you're going to be taking a lot of crossbow fire. And this is basically going to significantly cut the amount of crossbow fire you take down. It's a pretty durable shield, so you don't really have to worry about it breaking. And you're going to want to put a hat on for sure. I'm not sure which hat. You can probably do anything. But he'll just run in and he would kill this. He'd basically kill this whole stack, right? So the important thing is multiple threat vectors. So if he's doing something to counter your assassins, like patrolling, then you can just take advantage of that by sending something in to kill the patrols. And you have everything you need right now to do it. You just have to use it. So, like, if you do that, then you can move assassins here, then you can assassinate him. Then he patrols again, you send something else in, like that. Now, that's probably not going to work against things like Guardians. Because here is just a ton of crossbows, so it's kind of one-dimensional. You can counter it. If he starts having mages patrol that are buffing up the troops more, it gets harder and harder. But this is pretty easy to counter. So, but later, if you get things like golems, you can potentially set them up to deal with even more threats, because golems a lot of times are a little better. Golems will still struggle versus things like Guardians, though. Okay. Do we have a big battle here? I didn't even look. Just a few guys in the fort. Okay, so I think that is a pretty good summary of where you are, some options you have, and ways to take this game forward. I think you definitely have a shot at winning. Yeah, I think you've done a good job so far. But I think that, just to summarize, the things to focus on, one is I think you're diplomatically in a bad situation, right? I don't think this is a great war for you to be in, so I would look to get out while keeping as much of your stuff as you can. But as with many things in diplomacy, it's usually good to do diplomacy like in an understanding position where you're not going to like grudge yourself into defeat, because like it is in your interest to get out. But sometimes you need to do a show of strength, so maybe you kill off this army and then you deal with it. One final thing we haven't talked about. How do you deal with Kings of the Mountain thugs? There's like 1,000 ways. It's a little tricky. You don't want to fight this guy with troops because he's got, anyway, all this stuff. You're not going to be able to seduce him with the morale check, so you'll end up potentially taking him into combat. Bugs are not going to be great because he's regenerating a ton. And he's ethereal and has a vine shield. All these things are going to make it difficult for bugs to work. So bugs are not going to kill him. They can tie him up. And we can see if we let him run his script, he's probably going to do Iron Skin. Okay, this is an Earthquake script. He's not even going to do Iron Skin. But okay, he doesn't have shock resistance. So that's the main thing I'm looking at here. I think Thunder... I don't know if that's going to be sufficient, though, because he's going to be regening a lot. 15... That's probably not enough. Probably not enough. Honestly, the best way to kill him is going to be with air magic, though. So you can Cloud Trap piece these guys in. He's probably going to attack you this turn, which is kind of the unfortunate... Well, I wonder if you can actually hit him from here. Let's check. You would have to take these quills off. Okay, yeah, you can hit him. You've got a ton of air gems. I would probably do that. The danger is he moves this army down here. I think that's very unlikely. But if he does, he would kill all the mages you're Cloud Trapezing in. What's highly likely is he moves this army here and he moves this guy there. But it's hard to say. But anyway, what you could do, if you were just concerned with killing him, you're in a bit of a pickle, because if you teleport in here, he'll jump on top of your fort, and then you'd have to do it next turn, but next turn that army would move here and it'd be coming on top, so... The timing is a little weird, but just in terms of how you would do it, this guy will die to mass... So you would just cast Cloud Trapeze on for all these guys, targeting this one. Okay, I'm not going to click through and do it on all of them. And then you take all the guys, which you're going to do, and you're going to script them to summon Air Elemental. It's going to take 4 gems for them to summon 2, and that's going to be all their script. And you have to put 4 gems on each of them. You'd probably want to do a test to see how many it takes. My intuition is that this many should kill him. Right, so 5 casters probably would kill him. You could do 6 to be safe. That's probably what I would do if I were playing, because I play balls out. If they move this army here, then those guys are just dead. But really, it's just some, like a few crappy mages. He can replace it too, so I don't know. It's up to you. But yeah, you could put these quills on somebody else. Without the quills, they're not too special. And if they win, then nice. You can move these guys in here for the main fight next turn. And you've got this guy in here who potentially you could... Well, I don't know. You'll have to move him in and then take him out probably later if you're going to have a big fight. But that's probably the move to kill those guys. If you want to kill them as part of an army, it's probably a little more tricky. But if they're part of an army, you can rout the army, and then they'll run away. Which is not a bad way to deal with it. And then if you've got a lot of stealthy units, you can cut off their retreat routes. So probably what I would look to do. And I think that is about it for that. So, okay, covering the challenge is we've got diplomatically we're in the wrong situation, need to get out of it, but you want to get out of it without giving up much. So like, see if he'll just take a fair deal. Like maybe like either he gets this or you get both of these. That's probably the deal I would offer, and he gets to pick. If he doesn't want that, then you can say, okay, we're going to do it, but my deal's only going to get worse. And then you basically kill his army, and then you probably still make peace with him, but maybe like he only gets this province, but you're going to keep all the forts and you're going to keep this and that. So, and you don't do ultimatums like say my deal will only get worse, but you can just say, my deal will probably be worse if I end up killing that army. And he'll be like, but you're not going to kill it. And then you kill it and he'll be like, oh shit, maybe I should make peace. So, probably what I would do, the diplomatic front. The research front, I think, is like actually, in terms of like if you want to win the game, I think it's one of the more challenging issues you're going to have because your research is really subpar. So I do the infamiliars, I do transformation to get more money, and then I'd start cranking out dryads like it's nobody's business. We talked about how to win fights versus Ulm, and we talked about how to win fights versus Caitlyn. And we talked about how to counter Caitlyn raiding. And I think those are really the important things. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, let me know in the comments. Take care.